Hello. This video makes a part of the professional industry project, which must be completed in order to achieve the BSc Honours degree in Equine Performance Science. This professional industry project explores the effectiveness of different equine training methods which exist within the equestrian industry. A combination of previously published studies as well as further practical data collection will provide useful information which can be applied in practice when training the equine athlete. This is explained in more detail within this video. This video counts towards 30% of the final mark for the professional industry project. It includes reflective video evidence in relation to the data collection processes which have been executed prior to the making of this video. It includes detailed explanations of the amendments which were made between the pilot study and the final study. Additionally, it provides justification of why these changes were made. Enjoy the video. The practical data collection within this professional industry project was designed to allow for a comparison between two well-known equine training techniques, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. A study completed by Warren Smith and McGreevy in 2007 revealed that a blend of both positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement is best for training the equine athlete. Horses used within the investigation showed more progress when being educated with a blend of both techniques in comparison to when they were educated solely by negative reinforcement. Another study completed by Innes and McBride in 2007 coincided with the study by Warren Smith and McGreevy. It investigated the use of positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement on rescue horses, and it found that horses trained using positive reinforcement were more motivated to participate in the training sessions and exhibited more exploratory type behaviours in novel environments. Although the two studies mentioned promote the use of positive reinforcement as an equine training technique, nowadays negative reinforcement is largely used to train the equine athlete. Goodwin et al. In 2008 explained that negative reinforcement can frequently put equine welfare issues under scrutiny. This is because it forces the horse to respond to pressure-based aids rather than the horse working towards a positive reward. Warren et al. In 2002 stated that negative reinforcement can result in fear of the equine athlete when it is not implemented in the correct way. The results of the data collection process within this professional industry project actually revealed that horses generally respond quicker to negative reinforcement in comparison to positive reinforcement. This could be a reason why horses nowadays are largely trained using negative reinforcement. A pilot study took place on the 10th of February 2018 using a sample size of 3 horses. This is a very small sample size, but the purpose of this pilot study was to identify and rectify any issues before the final study took place. Different horses were used between the pilot study and the final study. This was in order to avoid the horses becoming habituated towards the novel objects. Also, the horses only underwent each of the tests once, again, to avoid habituation towards the novel objects which would affect the results. Likewise to the final study, this pilot study took place at Kirby Muxloe at Thornyfields Livery Yard. Both studies were very similar and only 3 amendments were made between the pilot study and the final study. The first amendment made was the distance between the horse and the novel object. In the pilot study, this initial distance was 30 metres, and in the final study, this distance was reduced to 18 metres. The main reason for this was an underestimation of the amount of time it would take the horses to approach and sniff the novel objects. Additionally, the arena in which the tests took place was 22 metres by 50 metres. This meant that when the distance between the horse and the novel object was 30 metres, it had to take place a long ways in the arena between A and C. The gate and stables of the arena are located at C. This meant that the gate and stables were either behind the horse when it was going towards the novel object, or behind the novel object when the horse was moving towards it. This could have had an effect on the results, as most horses would tend to prefer to move towards the gate and stables rather than away from it. Reducing the distance between the horse and the novel object to 18 metres allowed for the test to be completed short ways in the arena, between E and B. This eliminated possible influences due to the position of the gate and the stables. This would have made the results more reliable. The second alteration made was the presence of a rider in the positive reinforcement test. In the pilot study, there was a rider present for the negative reinforcement test, but no rider present for the positive reinforcement test. The reason why, in the final study, that there was a rider present for both the positive reinforcement test and the negative reinforcement test was to reduce the variables which may have had an influence on the results obtained. The final amendment made between the pilot study and the final study was the sample size. 3 horses were used in the pilot study, whereas 6 horses were used in the final study. This larger sample size allows for a narrower margin of error and therefore less uncertainty in the data collected. This graph displays the results from the pilot study. It shows a clear trend that the horses responded more quickly to the negative reinforcement and sniffed the novel objects in less time. All the horses took a greater length of time to move the first 10 metres towards the novel object when positive reinforcement was used. Horse 1 took almost 3 times the amount of time to move the first 10 metres towards the novel object with positive reinforcement compared to negative reinforcement. However, horses 2 and 3 took a similar amount of time. To move the next 10 metres towards the novel object, it also took longer for all 3 horses when positive reinforcement was used, rather than negative reinforcement. Contrastingly, it took all 3 of the horses longer to move the final 10 metres and sniff the novel objects when the negative reinforcement was used compared to the positive reinforcement. This complements the study by Innes and McBride in 2007, which found that horses trained using positive reinforcement showed more exploratory type behaviours in novel environments. This graph shows the results from the final study. The results of this study were similar to that of the pilot study. With the exception of one, all of the horses responded more quickly to negative reinforcement and sniffed the novel object in less time. All of the horses took a greater length of time to move the first 6 metres towards the novel object when positive reinforcement was used, in comparison to negative reinforcement. It took half of the horses longer to move the next 6 metres towards the novel object when positive reinforcement was applied, rather than negative reinforcement. Opposingly, the other half of the horses completed the next 6 metres more quickly with positive reinforcement in comparison to negative reinforcement. Likewise to the pilot study, all 6 of the horses took a longer amount of time to move the final 6 metres and sniff the novel object when negative reinforcement was used rather than positive reinforcement. The results of both the pilot study and the final study indicated that horses tend to respond more quickly to negative reinforcement in comparison to positive reinforcement. This is likely to be the reason why negative reinforcement is commonly used to train the equine athlete. Contrastingly, the majority of the horses in the investigations responded more quickly to positive reinforcement when they were encouraged to actually come in contact with the novel object. This indicates that positive reinforcement gives the horse more confidence than negative reinforcement. The data collected within this professional industry project provides a comparison of the effects of both positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement when training the equine athlete. It is hoped that the findings will influence the way in which riders and trainers choose to educate their horses in order to achieve the best results possible. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.